Shut up and sit down.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fight for Liberty show. So tonight we have a really awesome show for you. I'm super excited to show it to you. But first, what you should do is you should pause the video, go to shop.fightforliberty.com and get one of our cool new t-shirts. They're only $13. They have the logo on them. They're super cool. Go pick one of those up and then come back and finish watching this video because it's going to be super awesome. I'm actually really excited to have another host of a show from Free Speech Media coming on and joining me. He's the host of Don't Quote Me on This, Bill Barger. Thank you so much for coming, and it's great to have you on the show.
What's up, dude? Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Forgot to throw these logos up in the corner first. There we go. Now
nice.
We're all official.
I love that intro you have, man. The intro video.
Thank you. It is the most work that I've put into almost anything for this show because I have very little video editing skills at all. So that was like a 4-hour project for that, dude, like 30 seconds.
It looks great. It's intense, gives people a good feel.
I appreciate that. So actually, are you a WWE person or were you when you were younger?
I was not.
Okay.
I was not.
Because I just made the connection that the like talking at the beginning reminds me a lot of Edge's intro music from WWE, because just like that one random little sentence and then I finally clicked today while I was messing around with it again.
Yeah, that music is killer.
Free royalty free media or music.
Yep.
It's always a great time.
Can't be beat.
Right. So you're fairly new to the actual like inner workings of an active member of the party kind of sphere. Is that correct?
Very much.
So
Very much.
I'm curious what got you from the Liberty movement to the Libertarian Party?
If I had to give credit to like a person, it would probably be or like an organization, probably be like Dave Smith and the Mises Caucus. Essentially, I have been like, liberty minded since the Ron Paul days. And then, I don't know when I started listening to Part of the Problem and then discovered Tom Woods, Michael Malice, all that. There's a whole like group of people that they kind of have like a network of podcasting crossovers that they do. Discovered all those guys, Thaddeus Russell. Who else? I don't know. There's a bunch of them. Kind of got sold more and more on the idea. I was like a libertarian of being like an anarchist. Now I consider myself an anarchist. And then the past year really was what got me to join up like in a organized fashion and not just be like, I guess I was more agoristic before. I just thought like, I don't like the government. I don't want to deal with it. I don't believe that they're using my tax dollars efficiently. So I don't want to spend money on them, essentially. I don't think that I'm getting services from this. I don't think anybody's really getting services from this. So in the last year, the lockdown, such an overstep. I'm like, I got to get involved. If there's people who are actively plotting every day to control my life, I should be actively plotting every day to retain control of my life. And if there's an organization of people doing that, I'll join up. So that's how I signed up.
That's awesome. I'm really encouraged by how many people the Mises Caucus has brought in over the last couple of months, because I know Scott Horton tweeted out something a couple of weeks ago that annoyed me, but I liked what he said. He was like, the libertarian movement is joining the Libertarian Party, and I hate the idea that like Dave Smith and Scott Horton and Michael Malice and Tom Woods were the libertarian movement, and that we weren't all like they were the only real libertarians, and they talk that talking point too much. But I'm very excited that the movement is finally joining the party and we can like maybe get some shit done. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and I'm going to go so far as to say that I don't think that they specifically are the movement. I think that those guys are like spearheads. They're like the geese at the head of the formation or something. They're not the movement. The movement is all the people that are join, like you say, joining the Mises Caucus. The movement is the people who are joining up who were not joining up before. And if those guys helped, they helped. I agree. I don't think they're the only real libertarians or anything like that. And I don't really think that's their message, but that's a whole can of worms. That I don't know if you want. We could talk about more substantive topics.
I would say that is their message, because they're obvious, especially like Dave and Todd Hagopian and Angela McArdle and kind of some of the newer members of the Mises Caucus are definitely have a much better messaging style than that. But it kind of had been their messaging over the last few years, was kind of like, oh, we're the libertarians, we're the real libertarians, and that party over there is just a joke. And so that's how it came across to us who are in the party, from the people that weren't in the party for quite some time. But I don't want there to be that divide anymore. The idea that we're not united around, like you said, actively plotting to take our freedoms back.
Yeah, well, I think we actually are. There's it's so easy when you get in any group. You find out where the rifts are. You find out where the fight within the group is, and the more the group becomes cohesive, the more you see where the sticking points are and the friction is. I think it does suck that there's all infighting, but ultimately, I think it's a sign that more people are interacting, because I didn't know, for example, 2 years ago, there was infighting in the Libertarian Party. I guess I could have assumed because it's a political party, but I didn't know because I wasn't involved in it. And so to me, the more people get involved and see that we're fighting or whatever, it's like, yeah, it sucks. And we should get through some of this. We need to have I almost said a backbone. I don't mean that. I mean, I think we do need to have a backbone, absolutely, and not be afraid to piss people off. But also we need to have like a core. Like we need to have like a structure that we all can get behind. I know we have like the planks or whatever. I'm not super familiar with them. You have the non-aggression principles everybody seems to agree with. It almost gets boring to people who want libertarians to talk about that. So I try to keep non-aggression principle out of it. Not that I don't talk about it, but I don't say the non-aggression principle. I think it turns people off. They get bored. They just fall asleep. Makes people want to take a nap.
I'm a big fan of turning it into like an Eastern philosophy conversation, personally.
Interesting.
I am a huge fan of taking people, especially if they're kind of naturalistic or if they like Eastern philosophy in any way, shape, or form, which a lot of people in the liberty movement do already. It's a weird amount of crossover that I've noticed between like Taoists and Hindus and libertarians. It's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. I haven't experienced too much of this, except I know that our buddy Harrison Kemp, shout out to Harrison, is into that.
Yeah. Well, you've also got a guy in your area, Richard Manzo is a good friend of mine up in Goffstown. That's a Taoist and a big member of the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire. And it's interesting. But the thing is, they match up almost perfectly. Like, Taoism is literally the philosophy of like love everybody and just like live a good life and try to help people and like don't hurt people or steal their stuff. It's the basic core principles of libertarianism, in my opinion. It's just like, be a good person and stop fucking with other people. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think almost everybody who's going to be involved in an organized religion can kind of get behind that. I don't know, my camera drop?
Oh yeah,
that's weird. Lost connection to the camera. Make sure you have the right camera selection and close any other applications. Yeah, I think that I'm not familiar with Taoism. I'm just going to keep talking while I try to troubleshoot this. I'm not familiar with Taoism too much, but what you said there sounds pretty compatible. Right. Sounds pretty straightforward. I just switched to the other camera.
Okay.
So explain to me, though, your thoughts on Taoism and libertarian. Well, I don't know enough about Taoism to agree or disagree with that. I think if it really, you described it like, just keep to yourself, be good to other people. Not even keep to yourself, but like mind your own business. If it's not hurting you or nobody's hurting anybody, don't bother with them. Very basic, like porcupine stuff.
Right. So Taoism is kind of like the foundational belief behind both Hinduism and Buddhism, and actually a couple of other similar religions. It would kind of be like the Libertarian Party platform compared to all of the caucus platforms. It's just like the root idea behind it that it's a little bit more atheistic or agnostic, I should say, because it doesn't praise any specific deities or anything like that. It puts a lot of that it puts it all on yourself, like similar to Buddhism, where you
The
are
individual.
the Brahmin and the Godhead, and like every person that you see is also the Godhead, and you should treat everyone as if they are you, which
Even Jesus said something very similar.
right.
Yeah.
That's actually, I was having a fun conversation with my dad about that today, because Christians take a bunch of the Bible super literally, like the creation story and like the feeding of the 5,000.
Some Christians, by the way, that's like a denominational thing.
That's true.
I was raised Catholic, and like they don't take it too that specific thing that you mentioned. They're like, no way did God do that. It's like it's an allegory or a metaphor or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I interrupt. I gotta not talk over people. Go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of some Christians, take those pieces of the Bible super literally, but then there's other parts of the Bible that sound more abstract, that I've been reading back over the last couple of weeks. And if you take those ones literally and kind of switch it completely changes the Bible. If you take the God is love, or whenever you did this for the least of your brethren, you did it for me, all of those kinds of sentences, and take those super literally, you start to challenge the actual like existence of one like monolithic God, even based off the Bible.
Doesn't that turn into the whole thing where all of us has an opportunity to be a Jesus in our world, in a sense, where we can be the change we wish to see, and say the individual, it's not like the state can make us do anything. Every individual has to decide to interact in a certain way, and that'll make it better. And the more individuals make that individual decision, the more like you can't pass down. It's interesting. You can't pass down rules from on high and make people obey them. I don't care if it's religion or government. So the best religions, it seems, they tend to pitch this thing where it's like the rules are passed down from on high, but you have to live them through yourself to show other people that they're worth living. We kind of like have this idea. This is the way that you should live, but it's also something that you have to live to show other people, because not everybody. It's like the Bible verse about Jesus is walking through and he's spreading seeds or something, or God's spreading seeds, and he's like, where it lands on fertile ground, it will sprout. And I think the idea is that you have to be spreading seeds. And I think the same applies to libertarianism or any good philosophy. You kind of have to be showing people that there's a way of living or a way of existing that, and to pitch it in a sale is one thing, or to say that other people will enforce it for you is something. But like to say, like, just to do it. And it's just like when you see somebody who is organizing people, who's inspiring people, who is helping people, and like there's no argument about that. Even if somebody says like, yeah, that guy was a dick to his wife once, or that guy, did this terrible thing. It's like, well, at least on a daily basis, he's being good to, he's starting organizations that actually help people. It's hard to deny, and it inspires you. Even if you hear something bad, there's nobody out there today you don't hear something bad about. That's how
Martin Luther King Jr. is my favorite example of that, because he was like a super man whore. Like he was cheating on his wife left and right, the entire civil rights movement. And it's like, I don't give a fuck. Like he was Martin Luther King Jr. Like I don't actually care about his infidelity issues when he changed the face of modern race relations. Like,
well, it's an ad hominem attack, right? Anytime you use Martin Luther King's advice to try to combat his ideas, somebody's espousing the ideas, you say, well, this is an attack on character, not on principle. This is the same thing with like the Constitution. It's an ad hominem attack. When you say like, oh, if we, the Constitution was written by people who owned slaves, this is indisputable. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's indisputable. They were hypocrites. That being said, is the idea sound? Now, personally, I'm an anarchist. I think it could have been better, but it is good. Right. If we had that today, it would be a better society. So using the attack on, any of the authors of the Constitution, there's varying degrees of terrible people by our standards today.
Right.
Using that attack just doesn't invalidate any of the ideas that are put forward, and like whether it's the Bill of Rights or whatever. It's not it's not a actual debate in the arena of ideas. You're debating the character of a person, and we can talk about that all day, but it's a distraction. It's a distraction.
If anybody watching wants to go watch a fun debate about the ethics of the founding fathers, Bill and I were on Emmanuel Torres' show, The Fix for New York, last week, and we argued about it for about a half an hour.
Yeah, it was good.
So go watch that if you want to really hear people dig into the founding fathers and talk about how shitty they were. But I agree that it's a useless kind of period of time. Like, I'll shit on the people who are actually like tyrannical, like John Adams. I'll never like let slip by, because imprisoning authors that wrote things that you disagree with is almost the worst thing you can do as a political leader, in my opinion. So like, I'm never going to give John Adams a pass, but the rest of them, it's like, okay, maybe they did some bad stuff. Maybe Washington cheated on his wife. Most of them owned slave. There was a bunch of bad things that they did throughout their lives. They were revolutionaries. They also committed treason. They also committed murder.
Correct.
They also committed arson and theft and a whole bunch of other terrible fucking things in the name of liberty.
And so many of those, and there's like things that are immoral no matter what state is imposed, and then they committed crimes against the state, which are a whole other set of things, where it's right now you have libertarians being targeted or labeled as domestic terrorists.
Right.
Did you see the CIA director today, or maybe it was yesterday? Did you see about this? He was saying that domestic terrorism is officially, it's as big of a threat as ISIS. And so I was like, oh, they're going to start giving domestic terrorist guns and hoping we'll overthrow dictators. Like,
right.
So we're going to start funding them with the state then. If that's your take, Chris Ray.
Right. I would love for the United States to treat the Libertarian Party like terrorists. We'd get free guns and a whole bunch of money and diplomatic immunity and like the freedom to do a whole bunch of terrible, awful things. We just go in and do whatever we wanted.
And every once in a while, we get an unconstitutional drone strike. Whatever, it's worth it. The perks. Think of the perks. They outweigh the cons.
I honestly, like, it wouldn't really surprise me if we're at a place where like our 22 convention gets drone striked or something. Like,
dude, but what a
not
sell.
Gonna lie.
What a sell for liberty. It's like really, it's a political party. Violence by the state against we're getting to the point where probably half the country would be okay with it. What do you think about this? I'm going to pose to you a question. We're going to remove the LP for a moment. If the establishment Democrats decided they wanted to drone strike MAGA fanatics, do you think the left would support it? And the second question will be, if the establishment Republicans decided to drone strike, I don't know, like not Bernie Brothers, but like hardcore, Antifa. Democrats of some, Antifa, do you think the right would support it?
Yeah, probably.
You think both
of those.
Do you think there would be any difference in level of support?
No, honestly,
No?
not after this year. I think the biggest thing that made my heart sink this year when it comes to like the possibility of right and left coming together in any form or fashion was when the BLM protesters mobbed Rand Paul, and then he went on TV for the following week talking about like trying to investigate their financial records to figure out who paid them to be there. And I was just like, neither of you guys handled that situation wrong. You guys are allies in this fight. Like, Rand Paul wrote the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act. Like, they're on the same team for this argument, and both sides handled it super awfully. And so I have much hope, honestly.
Yeah, to Rand Paul's credit, that kind of a thing has happened. And being in his shoes, being like the guy who wrote the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act, you got to think there's something suspicious about that. Right. These people can't possibly think that I'm so I think probably those people were just ignorant to Ron Paul having been the author of the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act. But I think in Rand Paul's eyes, probably he's like, how do these people not know? They probably know about the bill, but I don't think that it was really pitched as something that was like a Rand Paul effort if you saw that on CNN or MSNBC or probably even Fox News. I think it was just like the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act, and whether it was supported by the majority or not. So when I look at that, I'm thinking like Rand Paul is probably, it's just like when Dave Smith was he talks about being so surprised, like he's like, these people couldn't possibly come after me, like I'm like we're their representative or whatever, the people in the Libertarian Party hating him. I think Rand Paul probably is in the same situation. He's like, there must be some other motive besides that. I think they just didn't know. I think he's probably wrong, but I agree that to just go on TV and be like, we should be investigating where their money came from. Like, I don't know. It's kind of silly. Like I would say condemn that kind of behavior, move on from it. Like let people know that clearly you're not the guy that they're after. And also that's no way to do anything anyway, because if that's your technique, you can clearly use it on absolutely the wrong person. And it's not like you're vetting your targets. You're just yelling at people. How does that help?
Right.
And there's things you can do. I would say, if you want to actually make a difference, join the Mises Caucus. You'll make more of a difference than if you yell at people on the street.
That's a fair fucking point.
I'm just saying.
I get that, like, it was a rough situation, and he was definitely like probably afraid. Like there was some like actual violence that was kind of looked like it might be about to start, and so I kind of understand slightly how he handled it in the moment. But yeah, to then later, be a week later still bitching about it online, like those people were some off. It's the same to me as AOC's like, you almost got me killed. It's like,
I don't know. I'm gonna defend him again. He was way more threatened than AOC ever was. And also people a week later were making fun of him. Like the Libertarian Party platform was making fun of him a week later. And so for it not to be just like given up, and he's a libertarian. So for him not to just drop it, like I get it, but it's very hard. Honestly, in my opinion, in that situation, be the bigger man if you can. But also it's so hard not to get sucked into this bullshit, and people are actively attacking you, and people with your, with your brand on them or something. I don't even mean your brand. I don't want to think of libertarianism as a brand, but like these people who are supposed to be your allies are making fun of you. It's hard not to stick up for yourself, And maybe you picked the wrong way. I'm not going to disagree with that. I really think it's kind of a silly proposition. Investigate some BLM protesters. I don't know. It's as silly as a lot of things that have been proposed in the past year, though.
Yeah, it's about as silly as calling Trump a libertarian. Which he also did that. So,
well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit that's been said in the last year and a half, 2 years, and partly because I think the world's in a very different situation than it's ever been. I'll even say 4 years.
I'm really starting to believe that like the Mayans were right. The world ended in 2012, and we're all just in hell. Like this has just been hell since then.
You say that, but my life's getting better. But maybe I'm like a demon or like some kind of a sub demon. What is lower than that? Like just like kind of like a goblin or something. I might be a lizard person. I'll drink to that. I thought you were a lizard person. I called you out as a lizard person on my show.
That's true.
Yeah,
I'll drink to that too. But I won't drink like
lizard person sips.
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of agree with you. Like my life individually has drastically improved over the last like 4 or 5 years, but society, I feel like we're just living through one prolonged glitch in the matrix or something like that. Because, like, what happened to the murder hornets? Like, where did they even go? Like, we had murder hornets.
It was fake news.
Fake news.
Fake news.
There were like the rabid like boars that were running around in like Wisconsin or whatever the fuck.
They needed something to talk about besides COVID, and they were like, "We found 2 of these in the country, and it's a big deal."
Right. There was just so much crazy shit that has happened over the last few years. I'm like, I'm really starting to believe that we just like live in a simulation, and it's been glitchy the last couple of years or something. I don't know. I'm not actually a conspiracy theorist, guys. I don't believe this. I'm joking.
Hey, man, you can say you believe that to me, and I won't judge you. I'm entertaining all sorts of ideas. It's like
I've been enjoying that lately. Just being open to the crazier ideas because some of them make more sense than we think they do when we first hear them.
yeah, and I tend to not subscribe to any idea that I hear for the most part, but I'll hear it out. I like interesting ideas, and there's some really interesting ones. Like the world's gotten so interesting, man. In the '90s, I feel like it was so simple, but then I'm like, maybe my brain wasn't fully developed. Maybe I just didn't know
Yeah,
the weird shit that was going on in the '90s, because I'm sure it probably was. Right, there's some weird shit in the '90s.
there was definitely some weird shit.
But then also, the internet has allowed us all to just like talk to each other as much as we want, and I can find out what's happening in Serbia or in Iraq or Iran. I can watch videos live from downtown Manchester of the Peregrine Falcon camera they have on top of the buildings. Like I can just like watch what the birds are doing because we have Peregrine Falcons in Manchester, so they have a Peregrine cam.
That's so cool.
So, but if you can do that, you can look at all the fucked up shit in the world too. They have like snuff videos and stuff online. It's like, it's much easier, I think, to form any picture about the world that you want because we have more pixels at our disposal. Does that make any sense?
Oh, for sure.
But what are you framing together?
Right. And it's impossible for you to ever like actually intake all of the information that's out there. So you have to pick and choose. You have to create an echo chamber of some sort. Like I'm not gonna
more selective than ever.
Yeah. And so we all
You're not gonna watch what? I'm sorry.
Like CNN. Like
oh yeah.
I watch it every once in a while just to see what stupid people believe. But like I can't watch CNN all day and Fox and MSNBC and The Hill and like try to figure out what everybody thinks. Like it's just physically impossible for me to ever do that. So I have to pick, who do I get my news from? Who do I follow on social media? Like who do I plan on listening to? And we've forced ourselves into an echo chamber. Like there's really no way to not live in an echo chamber right now. But worse than that, you were talking about like us being able to communicate. We also got to find all of the weird fucking people that agree with us and justify our behavior. So like if you're some weird person that likes to, fuck calzones, you can find thousands of people online that also like to fuck calzones and like feel like you're part of a community and you're not weird for fucking calzones.
Well, you are part of a community.
Like, but you shouldn't feel like that, and you should probably stop fucking calzones. like
why did you stop fucking calzones? I support lifestyles of all sorts. I don't know about you, David Fite. Libertarian.
I'm not gonna like mandate that you don't, but I think the world would be a better place if you're forced to interact with a more normal group of people and couldn't feel that.
I think it would be better if you did.
If you did fuck calzones, you're saying it's better to
yeah. Listen, whatever you're into, man, you're not hurting anybody.
It's fair.
It's an underappreciated community.
Yo, now when I'm done with this, I have to just like look this up and see if there's some like Reddit thread about this or 4chan.
I am sure. And what's great about it is you didn't pick a pizza, you picked a calzone, which actually is a pocket. Like a warm pocket, which is like I'm just saying.
I mean, I had to make it a little bit more realistic.
But go ahead.
We just kind of got no, you're good. But yeah, I mean, we just have all this positive reinforcement around us for like whatever crazy ideas that we might have. And some of those really are like pretty awful. Like you can find almost any kind of like pedophilia, whatever you want online now and stuff like that. And
it's fucked up.
And we can see it happen, that it's becoming more normalized, even pedophilia.
Even on Twitter, do you know who Chrissy Mayer is? She's like a comedian who just goes out of her way to spend time on Twitter actively flagging fucking child porn. She hates it, but it's all over Twitter. It's all over the internet. So she's like an anti-child porn crusader. So shout out to Chrissy Mayer. But it's true. And it's like those people find communities and it's, I don't know. It's very interesting because I think what people who aren't harming anyone, like if you're fucking some calzones in your spare time, I'm not going to say I support it, but I don't not support it. Yeah, I think it should be allowed. And the reality is some person would look at this and be like, it's legal to fuck a calzone in all 50 states. It's like, well, yeah, because we never felt like we had to pass a law. And also, like, what are you hurting if you fuck a couple calzones, on a Tuesday? It's.
Have you ever looked up some of the like really stupid laws that exist in the country?
Like blue laws?
And like I think it's one of our states actually, because I know it's in New England, and I know it's a new state. So it's like it's either
did you just say you're in New England?
Shut up.
New York really wants to be, don't they? It's just barely out of the club. Just barely out of the club. New Hampshire.
The original, like, I mean, we
can't even point to that thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. You were? You probably were.
Yeah. I mean, well, I guess Massachusetts would probably be the original New England state. Whatever. That's not important. But there's one of our states. It's either New Hampshire, New York, or New Jersey. One of those three. It is illegal to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket on a Sunday.
Like on an ice cream Sunday or on the day Sunday?
Like the day Sunday.
Okay, so you can stack them. Okay.
Yeah, you can do it the other 6 days of the week, but on a Sunday, you cannot put your ice cream cone in your back pocket. I really want to know who the fuck was putting their ice cream cones in their back pockets to where we needed to legislate this away, because it's a bad place to put your ice cream cone.
Do you think that was one of those laws that was snuck in? Like they were passing a law on like shitting in the streets or something, and they're like, yeah, you can't shit in the streets or have ice cream in your back pocket. Somebody else was like, we really need to get this ice cream bill in there. Because that's what happens with so many things. Like the bailout, you see this new COVID bill is bailouts for other states. Like California and New York are going to get bailed out with states that have not shut down their economies money. But do you think I would assume that the ice cream back pocket bill was snuck in there with something that actually kind of made sense, perhaps?
Probably. I like to think
it was like that makes sense, but
yeah. I like to think that it was like a Thomas Massey style legislator that was just like, I'm going to prove to you guys how fucking stupid our legislative system is, and just
I like
sneak this in there. But I would highly encourage you to just like Google at some point in time, like America's stupidest laws or something like that, because like every state has at least a couple that are just like, you can't walk your dog on like the left side of the street on Tuesday. Like there's just so many dumb laws like that in America.
Nobody knows.
Right.
The cops aren't going to enforce them.
Right. It is literally impossible for us to even ever comprehend or understand the amount of laws and statutes and like legislation that controls us on a daily basis. We're probably breaking like 7 laws right now and don't even know it.
I'm actively breaking at least 3 that I do know about.
Well, I'm out of weed, so I'm not breaking that one. So I said I'm out of weed, so I'm not breaking that law. I actually might not be breaking any laws right now that I know of.
I'm probably not actively, but I try if I can. There's so many stupid ones. Here's the deal. I have the theory, not even a theory, it's fact. We live in the most regulated, most taxed state ever. I don't mean specifically like state, but like government. Like we live under there's more laws than there have ever been in any country in America, and we tax people more than any other country has ever taxed. Maybe not any other country, but like as far as revenue collected, there's probably been higher percentages. But as far as like the size of the state, the amount of dollars being brought in, never been a bigger one. And we still have problems. They passed more laws about guns, and people are still shooting each other with guns. They passed more laws about corruption. People are still corrupt. They've passed laws about everything, and they're just laws. They don't stop people from doing shit. People break the laws. Laws are just penalties. This is my theory. Laws are just penalties. A law is not actually a thing that stops anybody from doing anything, except psychologically. A law is a penalty for what you do. And then the way we have penalties, so many of them, the state just stands to profit from bad behavior. I see this all the time. It's like pollution laws. I don't support people polluting. However, if the fine or the punishment for polluting is just for you to have to pay $20,000, well, now small businesses can't pollute, and big businesses, they pay $20,000 and they can dump as much shit as they want in the river.
Yep.
And then the government makes money off of you dumping shit in the river. I'm like, is that a solution to pollution? I don't think so. That's the government being corrupt. And I always, you've probably heard me say this before. I always define the state or describe the state as, it's an analogy. I'm gonna pitch it to you, right? So let's say you and I live in a neighborhood, and every household decides we're gonna pitch in $50 to get the garbage cleaned up in the neighborhood, right?
Right.
$50 a week or whatever it is. We're just going to do that for a nice round number. So there's 100 houses, $50, $5,000 per week. We're just pitching in to get any random garbage, whether it's fell out of a trash can or blew away or somebody littered, get that cleaned up. They're going to clean up the mess for us. $5,000 a week. The next week, after we've paid the $5,000, these people come back to us that we've hired. It's like some third-party organization. It's not us. We're not cleaning it up. That's why we're paying, right? They come back to us. They're like, hey, listen, we only got half the garbage cleaned up. Can you give us a little bit more money? And then we look around and like, yeah, you really did only get half the fucking garbage cleaned up. What is this? And then we ask our neighbors and like, I heard these guys were firebombing other neighborhoods and vandalizing over there. And they took your $5,000 and they bought a bunch of spray paint and explosives. And they've just been fucking with people. And they're asking for more money. I'm like, this is the state. They're saying they're going to help the disenfranchised and the downtrodden. They're going to clean up the garbage. They're going to clean up the mess. They don't do it. They take our money and they hurt other people. They actively take our money and they use it to hurt people. That's why I'm an anarchist, and people always come back and say, well, you're not going to fix human nature. When you remove the state from the equation, you're still going to have people who are going out of the way to destroy other people's lives. They're going to take, whether it's like for a voluntary fund or whatever, they're going to take the funds, they're going to misappropriate them. They're going to spend them on, harmful stuff. Well, sure, but they won't have the guise of legitimacy that the state does, and they won't be able to automatically take your money. It'll be voluntary contributions. People can opt out. I think that's better. That's why I'm an anarchist, because the state just takes your money. They do fucked up shit. They tell you they're going to do good stuff. They don't do it. And we don't get an option to not pay. We have to pay. So that's where I'm at. I just don't believe that the state is a good means of that. And I don't think people are kind to each other because of the state either. I think we would find ways to effectively help each other. And if I wasn't paying 20% in taxes, my employer wasn't paying 20% in taxes before he gave me any money, I'd have a lot more money to give to like the homeless guy in the street or a nonprofit or a contribution. Like, it's very simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
just ranted for 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. That was all fucking spot on. I've got a joke for you. What's the difference between a libertarian and an anarchist?
About 2 years.
It's usually 6 months, but yeah, basically.
So do you consider yourself an anarchist?
I don't. I'm really fucking close though. I consider myself like a pragmatic anarchist right now. Like I'm like right on that border. Like I think anarchy is the best idea. I just don't know if we're ever going to convince the entirety of America of that. And so therefore I am like willing to take some concessions and get as close to anarchy as I can based off of the idiocy that is the voting population of America.
But let me ask you this, I think, would you stop selling less laws there once you got to that point? Or would you be like, hey, maybe we can roll this back further? Because for me, I'm like, there's a scale down. I agree with you. There has to be, we don't go from the state, like the American empire, to no state overnight. And there would be problems if we can't push a scale down process. Yeah. So I imagine you probably are. You're just like taking a more pragmatic approach than me, where I'm just like, no, fuck it all.
Yeah, basically that's right about where I'm at, and I've moved a lot closer down that pipeline over the last like just 2 or 3 weeks, really.
Interesting.
I have lost a little bit of faith in just the electoral system in general, that it's legitimate. I've lost some faith in voters that they're ever gonna like vote their conscience. and I've lost a lot of faith in the state, obviously, over the last year. And then also started listening to more Kerry Wedler and Michael Malice and other like actual well-spoken anarchists that don't just sound like crazy people.
They're two of the best.
They really are. I really like Carrie said something on her show or on her episode with Reed the other day. She's like, it's a really strong statement for anarchy when the biggest fear is that it might devolve back into government.
Yeah, I said
Like-
today earlier, I said I'm an anarchist because small government systems lead to big government mess. So perhaps anarchist systems will only lead to small government mess. You know, like perhaps if we have an opt-out
Right.
for every single option, it will only lead to small government mess, you know, because small government clearly leads to what we have today.
Yeah. Do you think that there's just like an expiration date on a good country that like every country needs to kind of like blow up and reconvene every couple hundred years for it to like stay sane?
I don't see why there inherently would be. I think we often end up in situations where it's like that. But people tend to gravitate towards a state. It's not like I feel like we've gotten, listen, the Constitution seems to me like the best document we've founded a country on so far. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But what's to say we couldn't come up with a better one? You know, like what's to say we couldn't come up with something that didn't expire? I'm an optimist at heart. I'm an optimist. I like to ridicule every idea that comes in front of me. Absolutely. That's like what I do with my spare time. I'm thinking of starting a whole t-shirt company called Sinister Shirts. It's all shirts I don't agree with. But that's a like making fun of every caucus.
I like that.
Dude, I had one for the Mises Caucus. I had one for the Pragmatic Caucus. I can say them on here. I don't mind saying them. I just want people to know I don't believe in them. Do you want to hear them? It's two that I came up with last night.
I really want to hear this.
So I love the Mises Caucus. I'm a Mises Caucus guy. I'm selling Mises Caucus shirts. If you want to buy them, go to teespring.com/Mises-energy. And there's a dope shirt right there. It's for sale. But the shirts I came up with, the one for the Mises Caucus was putting the Aryan and libertarian because everybody calls the Mises Caucus racist. And then I was thinking for the Pragmatist Caucus, I would be like lukewarm libertarians. But this is me. Like, that's what my brain does. I just think of things and I'm like, I can't say that. It's like nuking the ideas I like, you know, like I like the Pragmatic Caucus. Right. I think there's a lot of value in selling people halfway. And once they're halfway, I'm going to grab and be like, listen, you're here. Well, let me tell you something and bring them a little further down the road. And that's cool. Like I like that there is different stages between full-blown statist who's disenfranchised and anarchist, because it's really hard to get somebody from just like a statist to an anarchist, or just like a statist to even just a libertarian. You know, I like that even the GOP exists, who's like, oh, we are pretend conservatives. We want to stop all this. It's like, because there are people who look at that and they're a big party and like, we do want that. Even if those guys don't do it, they want it. And the less they do it, the more those people are likely to come towards us. Maybe that is the reason it's a pipeline to the all right, because it's a slide. It's like the less the GOP delivers on actual conserving freedoms or whatever, the more it seems like we are. And it's like, are people going further right because they don't pick the GOP? I kind of disagree with that. But that's what people who are on the left would call it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the GOP wasn't far right enough. They have to go further right to libertarianism. I'm like, it's not really right. It's just like these people actually are trying to conserve your freedoms. They actually do. You know, they think that at least a much simpler set of laws would be better. If that's not conserving freedoms, I don't know what is. So conservatism is like, what are you conserving? That's the whole question. But I think you see my point.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that angle for why we get accused of being like alt-right. I've always thrown a little bit more shame at like some of the people within the movement for that, because there's definitely some messaging directly to them that's happened from people within the movement. But yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely hitting something there where the less the Republicans are conservative, the more likely those like real libertarian, like constitutional conservative, like Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, Justin Amash style people are gonna wake up and be like, all right, this is not the answer. The GOP is clearly fucked beyond repair, and we should probably bail before we try to elect the next Hitler.
Right.
Because both sides are going that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're both getting more. It's like the gun that is the federal government is getting bigger and bigger. And if we pass it back and forth from side to side, it's only going to get bigger until we get somebody who's like, I'm going to take some of the attachments off this gun. I'm removing the scope so we can't zoom into people's lives. I'm removing the laser pointer so we can't drone strike them from fucking 20 miles in the air. You know, I'm going to remove these things from the gun. And ideally, we get somebody in who will be like, fully disarmed. This gun is neutralized, and you can all own guns this big yourself.
Right.
But the government doesn't. But I don't know that's going to ever happen. That's why also and we've talked about this a little bit before, just to segue into that, I would rather pick somebody like Dave Smith and Angela McArdle for the 2024 ticket and support them than like an Amash or a Tulsi, though I like both of those characters. You know, I want the most hardcore messaging that's effective messaging, because those are both effective messengers that's going to sell people on like, hey, this gun is way too big. And if I did get it, I would say, get rid of the whole goddamn thing, you know, because the slow rollback I think is good. But if we pitch people that we want to go halfway, and I can't, like I say, I can't pitch people the pragmatic pitch. I'm an anarchist. I like that you're there pitching them that, because I'm going to sell some people, you're going to sell some people, and it's the pipeline to the alt-right. I'm telling you, not alt-right, but it's the pipeline to actual freedom for sure. And if we're going to call that alt-right, then fucking, I don't care. Call me whatever you want. You know, the words don't mean anything anymore because they keep changing the meanings. But this is the pipeline to actual liberty, to actual freedom. It's to roll back. And we can't do it overnight. So we need people like you, but we need people like me to say that this is the real goal. This is the real fucking goal. And it's to roll the machine all the way back. Because if we roll it back to what it was in 1900 or in 1850 or whatever it was, you know, let's say 1870. Well, no, even 1870 isn't good. It's like the state grows and grows and grows. Let's roll it back to just anarchist voluntary systems, and then only small government can prevail. Big government cannot exist. And if Walmart has to be the most powerful organization in the world, well, I'd rather that than somebody's going to bomb fucking kids, little brown kids overseas.
Right.
Just saying.
Right. Yeah, everyone throws in ANCAP's face like that, like you're gonna go from being controlled by the state to controlled by Walmart and McDonald's. And like, as much as I don't like Walmart or McDonald's, and they're both shit organizations that treat their employees like shit and their customers like shit and literally poison us with a bunch of shit, and like they're awful organizations, but they're all still better than the United States federal government. Like every
voluntary
private corporation in the world. Yeah, that too.
It's fucking voluntary. Come on. Walmart's not coming to your door and saying we're taking 20% of your pay.
Right.
The Walmart warlords.
Gonna dock it. Right. They'll just dock it from your pay if you work for them, and fuck it. Like, and we've already proven that like Domino's can build better roads than the government, right? So you just keep going with that mentality. Let's just. That shit will always, that will be my favorite thing that any company has ever done until somebody does something really cool. Because like the fact that they were just like, all right, government's not working. We're gonna make sure that we don't fuck up our delivery cars and go fill in these potholes ourselves. And they did it. And they put their logo in the pothole.
Hell yeah.
Which was brilliant. And I'm like, all right, cheers to you. Like, free marketing for you. We have fixed roads. Everybody wins. Why can't the whole world work like that?
Do you think they had to get express permission from the city to do that. Like, hey, we know you can't fill your potholes, but we can fill your potholes. Will you give us permission to fill your potholes because you can't do it? Like, do you think they had to get permission from the state to fill in for the gaps where the state couldn't actually meet the needs of the citizens? I bet you they did.
It would depend on where. It would depend on where they were doing it, because I know that there are states where if they did that, the state would go back through with a jackhammer and re-fuck up the roads. Like, that's a thing that happens and has happened. Like, there, I know this was Canada, not the U.S., but there was a story that really, I think, kind of started me down the more towards anarchy pipeline, because this came out probably like 2 years ago. But there was a proposal in the city planning committee to build a staircase in this park, and they said it was going to cost $50,000 for the city to build this staircase. And yeah, this guy went through, built a staircase for like $1,200. And then the city came through and tore down his staircase, and then spent the 50 grand to build another one that was objectively worse. And it's like, why? Why do we do this?
Well,
what part of this makes sense?
We have to justify the budget. None of these budgets start from zero. It's all like, if you didn't spend all your money. Oh, thank you, Kayla. If you didn't spend all your money from last year, it's removed from the budget, so you have to spend all the money they allocate to you. And you start with that amount of money next year, and then you can request more money. Everything should start from zero, so every cost is actively justified. It's like, this is what we need for this thing, this is what we need for that thing. Not like, hey, $10,000 did it last time, and we're going to need at least $12,000 this year. Well, what? I want itemized line by line. You start with zero unless you have the cost to justify $12,000. Because other than that, I don't support it. This is the problem, too, with taxes, I think, is it goes into one big jug of jungle juice for the state. It's like, I'm paying my taxes because I support healthcare. Well, you're also paying for bombs because it goes into one big jungle juice container, and these people line their pockets with it, and they pay for bombs with it, and they might pay for a little bit of healthcare with it. But for the most part, they're using it for what they want. It's their big vial of money that they get to just scoop out of and dip into with their ladle, and we all just pay into it and hope that they're going to use it for what we want.
Yeah. I do want to go back because I kind of glossed over the 24 election that you brought up. I'm honestly at a point now. So I was like an active part of like the Amash Gabbard. There was a concerted effort. I think there still is, really, to like make that ticket a thing and reach out to both of them, and like there was already like a volunteer base, and we were really starting to work on that, and I still believe in that, but at the moment I don't have a clue who our 24 candidate should be, because I think it all kind of depends on how like 22 goes. If we're doing
it depends
really
on how 24 goes or 23 goes.
Right.
But I agree with you.
That
but I think
sense.
like even further down the line, like who's doing good at the time? Who's actively messaging the important thing at the time? Don't die on the wrong hill.
Right. Yeah, I personally think that if any of actually I don't think this. I know this. If any of the people that we are discussing today or have been discussing over the last few weeks of possible tickets, whether that's a Mosh or Gabbard or Spike or Dave Smith or fucking Tom Woods, I don't care. Like, any of the people that have been brought up will lose. Like, for sure. Like, if they're our candidate in 24, we lose. Like, that's not a winning strategy. Nobody within the party is going to win the presidency in 24.
Depending on how you define lose.
We've
never won the presidency, and I don't expect to do it in 4 years.
Exactly. I think that
hopefully we gain
a chance.
Voters. Sorry, go ahead. I think there's a delay.
Yeah, I think there's yeah, there really is. There's a chance that like somebody else joins the party in the next 3 years that has the kind of money and power and clout and name recognition to win in 24. Like fucking Russell Okung or something like that might actually have a chance at winning the presidency in 24 if he joins the party and like starts like actively messaging libertarianism instead of just liberty. but I don't know that that's going to happen either. So like, I'll wait until people actually announce their primary nominations and, you know, are actually running for president before I really start picking who I want, because I don't fucking know right now. Like, maybe Dave Smith is the answer. I personally don't think Dave Smith is the answer. Like, not to shit on him, I just think that he is better where he is, and I think that he's got a little too much baggage to where it would be very easy to just completely discredit him and shut him down and not like give him any airtime at all if he was our presidential nominee. You know, there's a couple people he's talked to on his show, and just like, you know, all the shit that like the prags and the radicals throw at him would easily make it onto Fox News, and then like no one's gonna listen to him.
I don't believe in that guilt by association. I don't think that most people do either.
So I don't believe in guilt by association, but I do think that the majority of the American voting populace does, and we've kind of proven that with how we handle some of these other politicians in America right now, like Trump or like Marjorie Taylor Greene or like any of these people that we just like crucified.
I think those people were crucified more. Those like the two examples you gave were crucified more for the dumbass shit that they said than for association or something, in my opinion.
That's true.
I get it.
Yeah, there's also like a bunch of people that are just like somewhat associated with Trump that have gone to jail and, you know, have been gone after harder. I don't know. I'm not saying that like Dave Smith couldn't possibly do well in a presidential race. I just think that his brand might be better outside of a presidential race. You know, he's kind of out there, you know, and I love him for it. And I love his show and I love what he has to say. I just don't know if the majority of America would love it. And so, you know, that's why I'm kind of hesitant on him. I would be a fan of like a slightly more buttoned up version of him with like a little bit less baggage, like say Dan Berman type or something like that. I know Dan has a decent amount of baggage too, but like that's beside the point. You know, I'm a huge fan of Angela, but she's running for chair of the LNC, and I don't see her switching gears to actually be like out-facing politician either. So I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for the 24 race. Is just I don't really know, and I'm very excited to see who else might jump in soon.
Totally, and honestly, I think there's a lot of good options out there. I know we floated the idea of you running in 2032. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I would vote
that
for
would
you.
That'd be the first year I could legally run.
I would vote for you. As far as between now and then, because obviously you're my ideal candidate. Between now and then, I would like to see messaging that's going to get us there. Because we're not going to get a libertarian elected in 2024, and we're not going to get a libertarian elected in 2028. We might get one elected in 2022 or 2032. I do believe that's possible 12 years from now. But I think we need to sell anarchy to as many people between now and then so that the middle ground is libertarianism and we pull that mass over between 2028, 2032. That's my long-term strategy. And then David Fite for president 2032 would be the ultimate goal. But we have to sell anarchy. Maybe we should focus on libertarianism for 2024, anarchy for 2028, and then like actually get you elected as a libertarian president. Because between now and then, it's just about messaging. You know, so message liberty, message anarchy, and then message David Fite. And I think that's the progression.
I like that. I like that plan. I'm also a big fan of, you know, the fact that the Libertarian Party picks their presidential candidate and their vice presidential candidate separate. So I think
I agree.
You know, there's an opportunity for us to kind of do both of what you're talking about in 24 and 28. Like we could run like an Amash Cohen ticket or something like that, where, you know, our president is like a principled, like experienced legislator, and our vice president is like one of the most firebrand anarchist messengers we have, and kind of put those two together and launch them out and see what we get.
It would be
I
great.
think that would be kind of cool.
It would be
I
great.
think I would almost like that better than Amash Dabbard.
Oh, I would definitely like that. But listen, you have an actual libertarian on the ticket instead of the baby libertarian, which is Justin Amash. I mean, I like Amash, but like for him to be the most libertarian on the ticket, it's like no. We need a more libertarian ticket.
Right.
In my opinion.
I would love to see Amash move a little bit further down on the political compass in the same way that I kind of did over the last year and a half.
Were you looking to be president in the last year and a half and you decided you're going to go for congressman first or something? Like, because Amash seems to be gunning for president and join the Libertarian Party as a vehicle to that. I'm like, you don't even want to pardon Russ Ulbricht. You're not going to get accepted. It's not going to work for you. Sorry. And I won't support you. And I'm a libertarian. And I like you. You know, with those three things in mind, I still won't support you.
Yeah, that interview with Malice was definitely detrimental to my opinion of Justin Amash as a whole. I still like him. He would need to change his opinion on Ross Ulbricht before I put him on a Libertarian Party ticket, though. I'm with you. Like that's a thing that would stop me from voting for him at a convention, which would take some work for somebody to stop me from voting for him. But like, he's got 3 years to change his opinion on that. Like, I didn't even know about Ross until a year and a half ago. You know, he had been in jail for a couple of years before I even knew what was going on with that. You know, I still don't even pretend to know the entire story behind like Assange and Snowden or even Ross. Like, you know, so part of me is willing to give him like an ignorance excuse on that one. Like maybe that's one of those stories that he just doesn't know about. You know, I know a lot of people that don't really know about Ross that much, and even like huge Snowden and Assange and Chelsea Manning people, and like that are really big on how bad our criminal justice system is, have never heard of Ross Ulbricht. So I think like I'm willing to give him a little bit of time. I won't completely like cut him off from 23 because like, I know how far down that pipeline to anarchy I've gone in the last 3 years.
I appreciate you giving him the pass. I want to disagree with you because he does know the scenario, and he said that on Malice. He's like, oh, no, as far as I know, there was actually some crimes committed there. And I'm like, this dude doesn't believe in not persecuting nonviolent criminals. Ross Ulbricht has not hurt anybody. So otherwise, I would agree with you because it's not like he didn't know who the guy was. You know, when you said you only found out who he was in the last year and a half, sounds like Justin Amash knows who he is, knows what he did, and still thinks he should rot in jail. I guess he's not going to pardon him.
Yeah, yeah, that one. He did say something about like shortening his. He at least said that he would like want to shorten or commute part of his sentence because he doesn't think that he deserved what he got, which I think is at least like a step in the right direction. But yeah, no, I definitely, you're right. He should, even if he doesn't know better, he should as a congressman.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe he said that again, like as a pragmatist, like as a messaging thing. I don't know, but that's why I say lukewarm libertarians. You know, I'm like, come on, like the dude didn't do anything. He didn't hurt anybody. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. How can you support that? I don't know. That to me, it's like if you're afraid of messaging that, and I don't know if this is the case. I hope this is like me being optimistic, is that he knows that Ross Ulbricht should go free, and he is just afraid to say it. That's optimism on my part. I think that probably he thinks he should rot in jail, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But optimistically, I'm like, dude, have some gonads, say it. You know?
Right. Especially on Malice. Like if there's any place to say some dumb shit, it's in front of Michael Malice. Like that's the place to say dumb shit.
Or on my show. Don't quote me on this.
Or on your show.
Well, we make a joke out of your rights every week.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I definitely that interview wasn't horrible from start to finish though. Like there was definitely some really great parts to it that made me like reinforce my opinions on him. So like I said, like I really like don't want to worry about the 24 race for at least another 2 years. Like I'm working on a campaign right now. I have like 7 or 8 campaigns for next year that I'm debating between who I'm going to work for. One of them, unfortunately, isn't running anymore because Republicans fucking suck in every way possible and changed the rules for who's qualified to run for that race. So that was some fucky shit. That was Arizona State Mine Inspector Kim Ruff was going to run for that, and they just changed the actual like resume you need to have to run for that office. And there's no real reason to have done that other than keep her off the ballot. Like, and they changed it in such a random and weird way because she's overqualified for that position. She's worked in the mining industry almost her entire life. Her parents own a like metal manufacturing company and have been working with the mines in Arizona her entire life. She's overqualified for this job, and yet they put in like one weird little tweak that she doesn't quite, just a box that she doesn't quite check, so she can't run anymore. So that's some dumb shit. But there's sorry.
What was the tweak?
I had to do with working in, you had to be in management, like in an actual mining company for like 3 or 5 years or something like that. And she's worked with mining companies and I think for them for a very short period of time, hit or miss throughout her life, but she doesn't quite check that box because she's always been like kind of a third party that works with the mining companies.
Gotcha.
And like, you're not going to be working for the mining companies when you get elected. You're working for the state and working with the mining companies. Like that's like, it was really blatant. Like, I really don't see any other reason for that rule change, especially because the person that's in the role right now is super underqualified. So,
so they did specifically to block her.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do? Let me ask you this. What do you do for, you seem like you've done some work on a few campaigns and like, that's like a position you do. What is your specialty when you're working for campaigns? Like, what is that job like? I don't know anything about that.
So I've done mostly volunteer coordination style tasks. I wouldn't say that that's what I'm good at, but it's one of the things that are most needed in a lot of political campaigns. A lot of people love policy, especially in the Libertarian Party. They really love being on the policy team or on the comms team and like running social media or something like that. But not a lot of people want to be that guy that has to make 20 phone calls a day trying to rope people into showing up to events. So that's what I've done for the most part. At the moment, I'm a deputy campaign manager. So I'm kind of in all the shoes at the moment. But
gotcha.
I like being kind of the director role with the volunteers. I like people management. I like kind of planning events and putting people in their spots. And it's what I have the most experience in my like adult life is management. So that's what I've been doing. I did that for Tulsi. I did that for a state senate campaign here in New York, also in 2020. And that's how I started off on this campaign. And then they moved me up to deputy campaign manager because we didn't have one of those. And we had too many other holes in the campaign.
You seem like a guy who's good with people.
I would highly encourage getting involved.
Yeah.
What did you say?
So you seem like a guy who's good with people.
I try. I really, really try hard because I didn't used to be. I actually used to have like a really bad anger management problem when I was younger, and I had a really bad temper and no friends, and would just push people away. But my adult life has been a lot better in that area, and it's something that I've been working on. And so I've gotten, I think, better than the average person at this point because it's something that's nagged at me for my entire life. So I've put more work into it than I think the average person might have. Read more books about how to talk to people.
I did a lot of that too. I when I was a teenager, dude, it was stupid. I ended up on all these antidepressants. I was like socially awkward and fighting my parents and went to counseling and just digress in this thing where like this doctor kind of didn't know what she was doing, put me on way too many drugs. I had no friends. It made my like whatever problems I had, it made them worse. And then I had to get off all the drugs and like relearn how to socialize. And I had, again, like you said, I had no friends. So I had to like read. I went about becoming friends with people like somebody who had no idea how to become friends with people, but liked to read books would do it. Like an autistic person or something. I don't know. I went about it in such a way. I was like, I'm going to go the scholarly way of learning how to make friends. Like I have to read books and analyze, like, what does this facial expression mean? And like, I went way too deep into it. And now like, I feel like I could talk to people pretty well. I love people. And I used to like not have any idea. I was afraid to speak my mind. I was, very socially awkward. I didn't think people liked me or whatever. Now I don't really even care about all that. I just like say what I want. I do what I want, and life is better that way. But it took some learning. But I can relate. I can relate to the whole like having to learn how to be social. It wasn't something that I grew up naturally good at.
Yeah, and being in sales for a lot of my adult life has helped out with that. So I've been kind of pushed into reading more of those types of books, and how to win friends and influence people, and the art of seduction, and 48 Laws of Power, and the Red Book of Selling, and all this stuff has been kind of dropped on my desk throughout the last couple of years to read. And I joined Amway and like the multi-level marketing scheme for a little while, and they have a lot of really good books that they push on people. And so I had that advantage also of it being my career to be good at talking to people, and so I had that extra motivation in there. And now I feel like there was a part there where like it was more manipulation than it was people skills. Like I knew how to manipulate people, and that's it. I didn't know how to be a friend. I knew how to make them think I was their friend. And that was kind of a rough, kind of rocky time period for a little while. I finally figured out how to be honest.
A lot of those books sell that though. I got into I got into a world of like pickup artists, I guess. There's people who are trying to sell pickup artistry and like being good with women. And I was just like, I want to learn to be social. And it kind of learned into this thing. It's like, oh, if you want to learn to be social, you should learn how to pick up chicks. And then there's like, what I kind of ended up getting from that, some people fall into this trap of like, the game is to be able to manipulate any situation into what you want it to be. It's like, no. There's people you don't want to have this situation with. Ultimately, you need to be able to vet. You don't want to manipulate every situation into like, whether it's pickup artists or making friends or whatever. You don't want to be friends with everybody. You don't want to sleep with everybody. Like there's not every chick that you want to actually get with. Like you need to have some values, have some principles, have some compassion, have some understanding of actual people. But there is a sell to be able to take any situation like a numbers game and get the highest numbers, right? You get the highest conversion rate into getting numbers or getting lays or whatever it is, or making friends. And the manipulation aspect comes into play way too much with that, because the goal is to get the same result with every single person. It's like, no. Not every person is the same. You don't want the same result with every person. As a matter of fact, there's certain people, you get to know them a little bit better, and you don't want to be around them. And the assumption with that stuff, when you are so desperate to be around people, and I was at the time desperate. I had no friends. I had no idea how to talk to women. I was desperate. The assumption was like, I would like to talk to anybody, please. I would like any chick to give me attention, please. And you need to get past that to a point where it's like, no. Like you need to actually have some integrity and some values and some standards, and you'll feel a lot better about it all. Because otherwise it's purely a game of manipulation. Can I get this result from every single person that I encounter? Whether it's friendship or networking or fucking seduction, whatever you want to put that into, it's like a slippery slope of like results based and not actual like, what do I want with this, situation based, like individual based.
Yeah, I definitely fell into that for quite some time, and especially what you're talking about like just being desperate for any kind of contact. Like I had some of the most just like abusive and ridiculous friends and exes over the last few years, and it, what you were talking about that like desperation for contact of any kind made me really like codependent and clingy in my relationships, because I had finally succeeded in getting that girl. Now I can't lose her, because then I would have to do all that work again with a new girl. And I stayed in these terrible relationships, and I was so happy. Over the summer, I started talking to this girl while I was out in Michigan, and we talked for like 3 months, and things were actually like almost gonna get serious, and like we were almost talking like boyfriend girlfriend stuff, like we were about to put terms on it, and then it kind of got rocky, and I was able to just be like, what, no, I don't want this, like, have a nice life, we're not compatible, I'm gonna go find somebody else, you should go find somebody else, because like this isn't gonna end well. And I've never been like that. I've never been that confident and that like ready to go move on and meet somebody new. But I kind of took the leap there, and I've met multiple cooler people in the few months since then. And now I'm talking to another girl who's really fucking awesome and one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. And, I wouldn't be in this situation if I just clung on to this other girl that wouldn't have ever made me happy. And we were going to hook up eventually anyway. So I like to think that I've finally broken that cycle of just like clinging to anyone that will be my friend or be my girlfriend. Because that was a couple years of just abuse and just like tolerating the worst kind of people just to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah, you got to be willing to say goodbye, man. And also just be like, this person is not, as much as I thought I wanted them, I don't want them, or as much as like I thought it could work out great, it's not. So it's not going to be the thing that I imagined, even if they're not a terrible person or they're not, it's just, you got to be willing to let go of that stuff, because shit, man, there's a lot of opportunity out there if you're not hung up on one.
Right. Yeah. I hate the idea of like, finding the perfect person for you, because that'll make you leave a good relationship because you think there might be somebody better out there. But like, there are a bunch of great people out there for you, and there's 330 million Americans, just Americans. Like, there's so many options for you, like to get settled down with. Like, if you want to get married and that's your goal, like, you have millions of people out there that might want to do that with you. You can't just set your sights on the girl you met in freshman year of college and just like zero in on that for the rest of your life. It's just not healthy.
Yeah, my friend is he's an author. He's about your age. He's probably a year, maybe even 2 years old. He's like right around your age. Well, I guess we're pretty close in age, but he's between our ages. And his whole thing is like, you have to be willing to shuffle the deck enough times to get the hand that you want. He wanted to be like a traveling writer that could like kind of work from his laptop and live his life and like do his thing, but like be wherever. And he got all these crazy jobs. He just put out a book about it called Odd Jobs and After Hours. His name's Tom Zampakos Spencer, if you want to look him up. But it's his whole philosophy when he talks about it is like, you have to be able to, or be willing to shuffle the deck as many times as it takes, because you're going to shuffle the deck. You're going to end up in New York in some apartment that like you're renting for a few $100s a month. And it turns out the people who live there are cokeheads and squatters and don't even own the place. And they're just taking your money every month, and stay there for 3 months until they throw your shirt out the window. Or you have to be willing to move down to Florida and like work for this crazy guy who's going to scream in your face every day and like ask everybody at the end of their day, like, and what are your greatest problems, your greatest vices, so you can use them against them when they do a bad job at work. Like, like have these social like group meetings and like end up in all these shitty situations that every time you hope is the right one. And the same thing with relationships. It's keep shuffling the deck. Every time you're going to hope it's the right one. And these people who get so caught up in like, well, the last time I was hurt, so I'll never be hurt again. Nah, you're being a fool. There's good opportunities out there. Like there's good opportunities out there. Keep shuffling that deck. You're going to get something good. Eventually, just keep trying. Just shuffle. Walk away from the bad situation. It's so easy to get trapped. But it's like you're trapped up here more than you're actually trapped. You can find another job.
Right. That took a lot of learning for me. And I'm only 24, right? I keep saying my adult life, like it's so long. It's 7 years.
You're from New York. You've been you've been an adult for at least like 12 years now. You might not be able to swim or drive, but I mean, you're an adult.
I'm from upstate, so I know how to do both of those things. Thankfully,
I'm actually very proud of you.
Actually,
there is hope.
Funny because I was gonna. Actually, my first job was to teach other people how to swim. And, you know, I've
Dope.
gone from a swim coach to I worked in fashion. I worked in finance. I worked in politics. I've worked in like all sorts of different fucking careers in the last 7.5 years. And I fucking am enjoying shuffling the deck. And right
Hell
now
yeah.
I'm about to get ready to do it again. Like I've been stuck in politics for 2 years. I'm kind of like, I've looked into like nonprofits and stuff that have kind of offered me some jobs, like similar stuff, but a little bit outside of the world of electoral politics. Cause
Right.
this is annoying and I don't really love it 100%. And I'd love to be doing a couple other things with my life that aren't government related. Because, you know, if I'm going to be an anarchist ever, then I need to do some things with my life that aren't government related.
Hashtag goals. Anarchy and non-government related activities.
It's so great getting to teach other people how to solve problems without government. That's been kind of my active mission over the last couple of months, is to take people that are seeing problems with the world and they got burned out by the 2020 election, depending on who their like Democratic primary candidate was. They're like, oh, what can I do now? It's like, go fix the problem. Like you have like especially Yang Gang. Yang Gang is one of my favorite groups of people because they're all fucking brilliant. Like Yang Gang could have solved world hunger by now, like if they just put their collective minds to it. Like they're way out there with their skills, and it's like, all right, go do it. Fuck government. Like just go do it. And I've talked to a bunch of them that are doing it now, and they're like, "You're right. Government fucking sucks. Like we're just gonna go do it."
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah, I think the Yang Gang is interesting. I don't know a lot of Yang people, and their biggest issue, or the biggest, I guess, like push, I disagree with. Like their whole UBI thing, I disagree with. But I also think that they are people who think outside of the box, who are not really on board with the establishment thinking. They're not really on board with the way the money's being spent. Like if we are going to be taking money, we should be giving it directly to people. I'm like, I don't think you understand the actual financing of this, but you probably are smart enough to. I've gone over on a few shows. Like it takes me 2 minutes and a piece of paper. I can show you how it's not financeable without confiscating trillions of dollars of wealth. Which, do we want to do that or not? I don't think we want to do that. You know, to give away that much money, you have to take that much money. So I don't buy into it. But that being said, these people are smart. They don't buy into the current system. They're very much like they're ripe for the picking, at least of liberty. If not for changing their mind on UBI, I think they're ready to go somewhere. You know, like they're ready to be in a different place than Democrat or Republican, and I love that.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about Yang's original UBI plan, I'm actually on board. If we're talking about how he ended his campaign, then I'm completely in agreement with you. Because his original plan was to literally gut every welfare system that we have outside of like disability and replace it with the UBI. And that would include like getting rid of the overhead costs for all of these organizations. So, you know, we would cut ridiculous amounts of money in like salaries and rent and utilities and stuff like that for all these like DSS and WIC offices and stuff like that. And when you added all of that shit together and compared it with the price tag of UBI, both like the money that we give out and the money that we spend to facilitate the giving out of the money, it doesn't cover all of what UBI would cost, but it covers enough of it to where it makes me be like, okay, maybe that's a real choice. And you know, Yang was really quick to just throw out, and the rest of it we'll take out of the military budget, which I think is kind of a bullshit. Like you clearly don't actually know what you're talking about here, and you're just kind of throwing that out there. But it's real. You know, like we can easily get an extra couple $1 billion out of the military budget without.
But we're not talking
really doing
dollars a year. We're talking trillions and trillions of dollars to fund this. We're not talking a couple $1 billion. This is the UBI program alone would be about the size of the federal government is today, with all of its stuff included. And so we wouldn't be lowering taxes. Nobody would be getting more free. It would be like they're taking this much money away from us to give this much money away from us. And if we did it by taxing not you and me, again, this would be something that you'd have to tax the people you're actually making payments to as well. You have to tax your own payments, like double dipping, which I think is crazy. So that doesn't make sense to me because you're just like inflating a balloon and be like, we're giving you a whole balloon, but we're only giving you 80% of the balloon because we have to keep 20% of the balloon to inflate the balloons. That doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what they're doing. So, but to do this, it would be so much money that if you're even going to tax the millionaires and billionaires, or whatever you want to say, like if it's whoever you're, Bernie Sanders is like, we'll tax the millionaires and the billionaires, and they will pay for all of we'll tax Wall Street speculation by 0.00001% of 1% of 1%. We'll tax Wall Street speculation.
Right.
It's like, that's a slippery slope.
He doesn't believe in taxing millionaires anymore because he's a millionaire now. So he only supports taxing billionaires.
The idea is you could tax all the billionaires in the U.S. out of existence in about a year and a half and fund the government for that year and a half, and then you'd be bankrupt, and we'd have no billionaires, we'd have no Amazon, we'd have no fucking Jeff Bezos, we'd have none of that. Is that worth it to you? Mm-hmm. And I don't mean you specifically, just whoever's advocating for this. I'm like, you're basically destroying some of the biggest companies that provide the most services to people. Now, I don't 100% support Jeff Bezos or Amazon or Elon Musk or anything, but to bankrupt these people who might get us to space or might do this in the name of UBI and then not be able to give UBI afterwards seems silly because you've literally used up your whole resource. You know, you've tapped out your wealth. That's gone. You spent it. And to pretend like we're going to use our resources to make the same amount of money as Jeff Bezos that doesn't add up.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely not the biggest fan of UBI, but I think the people that support UBI have clicked in their head a thing that is necessary to click to move towards liberty, to like understand that the way that the welfare system is right now is super fucked up and penalizes people for trying to do something and keeps people down and makes people like forces people to be reliant on the state. To make that realization and say we need something different, I think is like a good first step towards liberty. And so I would love to see a UBI plan that would actually be fiscally possible and roll outable. I would be a much bigger fan of it being state by state because I think the dollar amount should be different. Like Ohio doesn't need the same amount of money as New York does.
Costs aren't the same. Cost of living's not the same. Lifestyle's not the same. Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. What do you think about like a negative income tax?
I've heard good pitches for that. I'm a fan. I'm also a fan of like the land value tax versus property tax. It's like a lot of ways that we could tweak our tax system to make it at least a little bit more fair. I like land value tax because it doesn't penalize people for adding value to their land. You know, it doesn't penalize you for building a building on your land. You're still just paying for however much the land value was. So you are not like penalizing people for development.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the Georgia's thinking, right?
I think that's what they're going for. I'm not. I honestly just kind of read up on it because we added it, or we're about to add it to a platform for another campaign that I'm working on, and somebody was telling me about it, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to look this up and figure out whether or not I support it. And you know, it's better than property tax. I mean, like if we're gonna do one or the other, I think I'd rather have land value than property. However, all taxation is theft, and we should just gut the whole system and burn it down.
Yeah, I agree with you. My impression of the land tax, the land value tax, and I didn't like it when I read about it. I had to do a debate on this a couple weeks ago, but it was essentially that you would be taxing the value of the land, but the value of the land goes up when the properties around it go up and the population density goes up. And so you'd be reappraising the land and taxing the newly appraised value of the land. And it would incentivize people to develop the land because they'd have to develop their property if they wanted to pay the tax on the land. And so essentially you're taxing people's labor and property, through the land value tax, even though you're claiming you're not. So to me, it seemed like just a circumvention of the same thing. You know, because somebody just owns an acre in New York City. Sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was just gonna. It's not much better. It's like the tiniest bit better in my opinion, because the property tax at the moment like penalizes you for like replacing your windows. Any kind
it's
of
stupid. Yeah.
improvement is a tax. But yeah, I hate to cut this conversation short, but
No, it's
we
good.
are about out of time. So
Yeah, it's cool. It's been a good one. I got to take a week
but
anyway. Yes.
right. Well, give people a little pitch on your show and how they can watch you and why they should watch you. And
Cool. Yeah. So basically, if you want to hear some more from me, I have a podcast called Don't Quote Me on This. It's also on the Free Speech Media Network. So you can follow that on, what is it? Facebook.com/Free Speech Media. I think that's the link.
I think that's right.
You can Google Free Speech Media Network on Facebook and you'll find it. If you want to follow my podcast on Facebook, it's facebook.com/DQMOT radio. I'm on RSS. I'm slacking a little bit on keeping that up to date, but there's some on there that aren't on my Facebook page. So that's rss.com/DQMOT radio. And then follow me on Facebook, on Twitter personally, because I put a lot more shit out there. Facebook is Bill is a Joke. And then Twitter is also Bill is a Joke. That's it. I used to do comedy before the lockdown. So hopefully that eases up soon.
All right. Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on. It was a great time, and I'll definitely have to have you back pretty soon.
Dude, thank you for having me. It was a blast. Appreciate it.
All right. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you don't already, click the subscribe button down over there, because not very many of you actually subscribe to the channel, and we need to fix that. If you want to support the channel, patreon.com/Fight for Liberty, or as I mentioned at the beginning, you can buy a cool t-shirt and get something cool out of it and also support the channel. So that's shop.fightforliberty.com. We will catch you back here next time, and thanks for watching.
Hey fighters, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos. If you want to learn more or get involved, go to fightforliberty.com/join or reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Fight for Liberty. If you want to help keep the show going, Patreon and Cash App are the way to do that. We'll catch you back here next time. Until then, keep up the fight.